Gardner,
Here.
Robert Strahan. I don't think I've seen the chief log in yet. All right, Herb Forgy.
Here.
Gene Wall,
Here.
Jen Stromston.
Here.
I do that all the time, leave myself on mute. Peter McIver,
I'm here.
welcome. Carol, are you on? Carol Collins,
I'm here.
Neil Joyce,
Here.
and Dennis Ross and team.
Yep, we're here.
We're here.
Chief is
Well-
here. Chief is here.
Oh, Chief, thank you. Welcome. All right, well, folks, welcome to 2021. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from December 7th? Gotta put our thinking caps on. Anybody?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes from December 7th? I looked them over. I don't have any.
Good.
All right. Well, let's do a wave of hands of approval instead of going around the room. If you approve, wave. Jen will get everybody waving. Thank you, folks.
I
All right.
wave despite the fact that my camera doesn't want to show it.
Okay, we have you recorded as approved.
Did we
Or
lose
saying
Butch?
yes. Thanks, folks. All right.
Oh, there he is.
Do we have any financial updates from any side of the house, the mayor, the city, or Dennis or Neil? Are there any financial updates we need to go over?
Well, we did get our $6 million.
We did.
Yeah, that was a good thing. I think we
Yes, it
can move
was.
reasonably
Congratulations,
forward.
everyone, for working so hard.
Yeah. I was assuming we were going to get a report from Neil and Dennis on where we're at some point. It may involve money.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, we've made no adjustments to the budget since we've last presented it and spoke about it. I'm sure we'll get into discussions on the various RFPs that are now out on the street for the temporary apparatus and structures. Generally speaking, no financial changes, nothing really to update. We've been presenting bills to be processed and paid as received by the architect. And I think at this point, Mayor, we have a signed agreement with the architect for
We do.
full services. So
Yeah.
we'll be transferring that over and getting that updated as we move forward.
Okay.
right,
Mayor,
great.
I do have, David, I do have one small thing.
Yes, go ahead.
For some of the due diligence that we had never planned on, for example, the laboratory reports themselves, the phase one, which Mayor, I think you knew about, and the report that you just got for the geotechnical engineer, the total on that, all three, is $8,500. I would like to be able to submit that since we had never planned on those.
Okay. Tell me again, 8,500?
Yeah, as a total. And
Yeah.
I'll break all that out for you.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I think there's money there for that, obviously.
Mayor, normally how we handle these things is these are what I would consider to be a budgeted reimbursable expense. So
Yeah,
they're expenses that we don't try to identify at the point of signing the contract, but everyone knows that we're going to do them. So we will have a line item set up, most likely $25,000 to $30,000 for budgeted reimbursable expenses.
yeah,
And these will be charged against that line.
okay. Okay,
All right. We'll try and get that out this week, but I want to have the actual information to back it up from the three companies.
Could we get, is this a time, I'm not looking at the agenda, David. Is this a time to get just an overall picture of what due diligence tests have been done? You don't have to give us full report on them, but which ones have been done and which ones are outstanding?
Well, can I think I don't have a problem going over that, but I think that also has to be saved for the Thursday meeting, for the full committee meeting, because we're talking about the permanent location, not the temporary, correct?
No, we're talking, yes, we are.
Correct.
Okay, so I mean, we can review it. I don't have a problem, but I would ask Dennis and Neil to review it on Thursday's meeting in front of David Singer and the full team.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that. I can get that information with an email to Dennis tomorrow. I have a specific reason for asking that.
No problem.
I think folks on Thursday will be very interested in that those questions and what the results were on those pre-tests.
Well, I can tell you on the lab tests, I can't even pronounce most of the chemical names on that thing.
Yeah.
And they don't exist on the site, so that's a good thing.
That's excellent. Good news. All right. Is there any other financials with respect to the temporary that anybody needs or wants to talk about? All right. The architectural updates were exactly what I was going to ask, if things have been finalized contract-wise. And you just mentioned that it was, so that's good news for both the temporary and the permanent. Are there any other discussion around the contract between the city and the architect that needs to be discussed? All right.
We're good.
Submittals and bid updates. Neil sent me an email, I think before our last meeting, that the bids for the temp offices are due back on January 21st, and that the RFP, sorry, and that the ones have gone out for the housings for the trucks, which is good news. So Neil and Dennis, do you want to elaborate and fill in some details on that subject?
Sure. Actually, Adam, you're probably closer to it. I would think you'd want to talk about the two RFPs, the one that's gone out, where we are with the addenda, and then the second RFP.
Sure. The offices / bunk room modular units, the temporary living side of the fire station went out to bid successfully. Or not bid. I apologize. Went out for proposals. We have since it was released, we have issued one addenda with clarifications, answering questions, and some minor corrections to the documents. And we expect to issue a second addenda, which will contain a sample contract to help get us the best price that we can. I'm working with Laura from the procurement department to get that taken care of. And that should be taken care of and sent to the proposers or the responding parties, I believe by next Monday. And like it was already stated, we expect the proposals back on January 21st. And by the end of the month, we will have the recommendation for award. On the apparatus bay structures, that request for proposal went out on January 6th. And the last day for questions is going to be, I believe, the 15th. And if we need to issue an addenda, we will by the 21st. I believe the date that we have said to receive them back is February 4th. And the recommendation for award will be about a week later, around February 10th. That is all the update that I have on that currently. Once we receive those proposals back and know what we're dealing with, we will issue any additional RFPs or bids to fill in the gaps between them.
Very good news. Excellent.
The only thing I'll add to that, David, is that we have sort of begun the next level of design, and that is coordinating the owner-provided services between Marlo and George and their crews, coordinating IT and communication requirements with staff from the fire department, as well as city staff and IT services. And we will continue to sort of drill down to that next level of detail for all of the required services in the coming weeks. And then we'll have secondary proposals, most likely under a state contract agreement for those services that Marlo and George cannot provide or are otherwise best served by an outside vendor.
And when do you think that will be ready for us to review that information?
I would expect that will be sort of compiled and together first or second week in February. We'll have an idea of what proposals are coming in, what the pricing is, any negotiations that we've made to those proposals and scope of services, and also give Marlo and his team sufficient time and detail to really dig into the work and determine what's going to be needed and what is, if anything, that's beyond his scope of services. So that's sort of what we'll be up to for the next month.
Okay, great. So I know that on the drawing, you had identified possibly what the town was going to take care of, and what, was it going to be on the bunker phase and what's going to be on the bay phase. Is there a list that was put together that we're going to ask the city to take care of? Did you put that together? I can't remember if I asked you or not, but is it possible to put a list together on what we're asking the city to handle? Outside of the bunker and the bay structure RFPs.
That is definitely possible, yes. And we have it in a graphic format right now, and we can compile that into a document for you, obviously for revisions.
Yeah, I saw it in the Yeah, I'd like to see it in a document form. That way we could understand, or everybody can see clearly what we're asking the town departments to handle. I'd like to see it if that's possible.
Not a problem. We'll get started on that.
Do you, David, do you want numericals with that or not? Or does it make sense?
I think at some point, but right now I just think I want to understand what we're asking the city to take on for responsibility. And then that list can turn into, if the teams think, obviously, some of the IT stuff, there might be stuff that, like Neil said, we're going to sub out or get pricing for. So I'd like to see that list of the things that have to get completed outside of the bunker and the bay structures.
Right. Okay.
Is that something you might be able to have together before the next meeting?
I think to some level of detail, yes. Do I think it will be done completely? No, I don't. But I think we can certainly have an outline of services. I know we've got a meeting scheduled with Marlo, I think for early next week, to review his services, and anything that are objectionable to him will sort of drip down to that next level.
Yeah, and it can be an ongoing document. It doesn't have to be, things could be added or deleted or, whatever, but just so we could see it in front of us.
Sure.
I want to make sure that, Marlo and team are comfortable with every item, that they can handle it, they can meet the timeline. And I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of what's going to be done by who. That's all. So
yes,
if we have to add things or delete it, at least we get the list started so we could take a look at it.
We'll use pencil, Dave.
I have a question.
Sure.
What is it? I'm assuming, and I probably shouldn't, so maybe I rephrase the question and say, the secondary proposals, the things that we might have to sub out that can't be taken into account by owner-provided services. Do those rise to the level of having to do RFPs? Because we know how long that takes, longer than it should.
Mayor, I'd like to think that we can procure most of those services under a state contract labor
Okay,
thing, which includes normally the state contracts for labor means you can contract out for prevailing wage, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, carpentry, whatever it is you might need. And the fee and the markup for their services is stipulated as part of the state contract. And you can go directly to one or more of those vendors, and in a week's time, you know, sort of with a written scope of work and any drawings that are necessary, in a week's time, you can get estimates from those companies and move forward without having to bid the work.
okay, thanks.
I think that's why it would be a good idea if we can get those items listed so we all could understand them. And then we could,
Sure.
you know, we'll all know whether it's going to go to the town group or we're going to have to go to the state bid list. And at least we have an idea of what those items are.
We can put that together.
Thank you. Does anybody else on the team have questions with respect to the RFPs that they want to discuss? So the RFP for the bunker is supposed to be in on January 21st.
Correct.
And then we're supposed to, the group that was designated, I think we're gonna do a ranking, correct, Neil?
That's correct.
Okay.
The RFPs will come in two separate envelopes for each proposal. There'll be a technical proposal, which includes sort of a layout of the space and non-price related factors is the easiest way to describe it. And then the secondary envelope will contain the price proposal. Unfortunately, I know what you're all thinking. You are forced to select the highest ranked or the best fit without knowing what the price is. So you evaluate the proposals based on their merits and their merits alone. They get ranked, and then you open up the corresponding price proposal and negotiate with that party. That's the way
Yeah.
sorry?
Go ahead, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
That's the way the guidelines lay out for modular construction.
Now, I was just going to say that has to be a public opening.
Correct.
So in person, so to speak. I don't remember who all we have reviewing. I don't think it's everyone on the committee, if I recall correctly. But,
No, it wasn't everybody. It was,
Yeah.
I believe it was me and Gene, Mayor, you, Gene Wall, myself,
Chief.
Chief,
and of course, I think Neil will be there, correct?
For sure.
as well as the team at Pacheco Ross.
Yes, sorry.
so I don't know how much of that piece can be done. I mean, you can go take the stuff, review them in your own corner, so to speak, you know, in your own time frame. We'll set a deadline on that, I think, a day or two. And then we can, I don't know how much of it we can do virtually, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I don't know the rules around that yet. I think Laura might. But I do know that the envelopes have to be open in the presence of at least one person from the team and one person from Pacheco Ross and Neil, one or two people.
So Neil, what can we, the mayor had just mentioned we can put aside items and we can look at them and then come together. Do you know what those are? Or, I mean, it sounds like we have to all be in the same room, at least the team that's doing the ranking. Can you explain that?
I think what would be best is if we can set up a meeting, we can walk through each of the proposals that we receive, sort of highlight the merits, the pros, the cons as we see them. If we can develop a consensus right then and there, we will do so. If we cannot, we will either reconvene virtually or in person once everyone has had the opportunity to thoroughly review and vet the proposals internally. That would be my process for going forward. In sort of looking ahead, I think that our next meeting is 48 working hours after the receipt of the proposals. So I'm not sure how much we will have to bring back to the committee at the next meeting, other than we can share with them the number of proposals that were received and the relative merits of each going forward. But I'm not sure that we'll have enough time for full evaluation and recommendation to this committee.
I don't think on the
Do you have any
25th.
kind of spreadsheet or matrix that you've ever set up for evaluating these kind of things, check boxes or, meets A, B, C, and X, Y, Z?
They will be the evaluation criteria. I think there were 5 or 6 categories from memory was identified in the RFQ, and we will go through and evaluate their relative strengths and weaknesses on those 6 criteria. And then we will, I'm certain, discuss things in greater detail for intangible items like aesthetics and whatever else is necessary going forward.
Great, thank you.
So Neil, I think you're right. I know, David, I got your chat that you had a few questions. So I'll get to you in a second, but
Thank you.
Neil, our next meeting's going to be on January 25th. And I think you're right. The 21st is that Thursday. So that's going to give us a little time. So I think we should talk about setting up a meeting. We can have the Monday meeting if we like, but we should probably set up a meeting that week to just discuss and review. If everybody can make a meeting. I mean, we could take the 25th time and do it if we wanted to and replace it with this meeting, or we could set up another meeting.
Replacing it with this meeting seems wise, given that we don't really have anything to discuss in the regular meeting.
That's what I was thinking. And we would do it live, Neil?
Difficult to say, Dave. I think the greater the number of proposals that we receive, the more confusing it will do to try to do it live. But let's see what we get for proposals, and then we can judge from there.
When you say live, David, what do you mean?
I mean, in the same room, in person. We'll be in person for this meeting. For the ranking.
I guess I'm getting a little confused. Normally you would go through, members of the team would go through each one themselves somewhere in their offices, at home, whatever.
Okay.
And rank. And then we would open them, we would do the ranking at a live meeting, in-person meeting.
An in-person meeting.
I
Okay.
mean, we would discuss the ranking and come up with that. Laura, I'm sorry, Laura's not on here. I didn't give her the heads up that she needed to be. Then we would do that in person. Right, Neil? I think that's the proper way to do it.
Yeah, I think that would be preferred.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so we wouldn't be doing the in-person meeting on the 25th. I wouldn't.
No, yeah, we would be doing the in-person meeting on the 25th, I think.
So
The point is, you would have to pick them up by Friday, the 22nd.
Okay.
If she can get them all done the copies made and everything by then.
Yeah.
I forget what the cutoff hour is. I think it's 2:00 maybe. I don't remember.
I thought it was 11 a.m. I think we
No,
did it
maybe it
before
did.
noon time.
It is
Okay,
11
maybe I have.
a.m.
Yeah, okay, 11 a.m. So you would have to make sure that each member picked it up by Friday and had the weekend to go over it.
Okay. And it would be the folks that are on the ranking committee, not the whole.
That is
temporary.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So we need to just make sure they're ready we'll have to confirm that they'll be ready Friday morning, that we can pick them up before 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no,
No.
11 o'clock is the cutoff time to receive the proposals on the 21st.
Correct.
Yes.
When you pick them up on Friday is up to you, as long as it's done before 5 o'clock.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah.
David, do you want to ask you questions? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. First off, Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you, David. Same to you.
Thanks. So if I understand what we set up back in December, based on what we're talking about, after the ranking is done, it's the full committee that will choose the who to use. Is that correct?
My understanding is that the subcommittee will be making a recommendation to the full committee.
Okay, so once the full committee's, we're only going to hear the one recommendation, or will there be several? Will it be down to finalists, or will it be one recommendation?
At the conclusion of the evaluation, there will be a ranking that is established,
I
and
see.
the committee will be asked to accept that ranking.
And okay. So we should attend, so on the 25th, after you open in person, you'll bring back so that people who want to see all the different RFPs can see it at that time, correct? So I'm a board member and I want to see how you got to the ranking. I can watch and join in on the temporary fire station committee that'll happen the Monday before the 28th, or the Monday before we meet as a full committee. I didn't mean to make it a long question. I guess what I'm saying is that in order for the people at the full committee to have a chance to participate in the process, they must participate and join in at the subcommittee meeting that's going to happen prior to the regular meeting where that final vote will take place. So if I want to participate in a discussion about ranking, is there going to be opportunity? Maybe my question hasn't been really asked properly. At the temporary fire station meeting, at some temporary fire station meeting, will this temporary committee and or the rest of the committee be able to be involved with the ranking?
Not the ranking.
No.
No, not the ranking.
No.
You will say Neil will present the ranking, I don't know, on a slide.
But it's the ranking committee that's going to be the only people that rank.
Yes.
That's right.
So the rest of us either say, yes, we want to agree with your ranking system, or no, we don't. That's our choice.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Sounds like it.
And at either one or both of the meetings, you will explain to all of us how you got to the rankings, or
Yeah, I guess I'm a little, when you say, you're gonna have to identify the committees that you're talking about.
well, let's start with the full committee.
Well, the full committee, I think of as the one that deals with the permanent committee. In other words, there is a full committee of there is a full committee of people who are tasked with the permanent fire station. There is a subcommittee tasked with the temporary apparatuses. That is what will transpire for the ranking. And the rest of the, it's not every member of the temporary committee that is going to do the ranking. So the temporary committee does have to, I assume maybe we should attach a time frame for the 25th in order to meet earlier in the day to do that ranking so that we can present it to the temporary committee. It seems to me, I know what you're getting at. I'm just trying to walk us through this so everybody understands. You're asking, when does the permanent committee get to decide who the vendor is for the apparatuses? And I'm not sure that that's the way we had intended for it to be set up, but I could be wrong about that. It seems like that is the responsibility of the temporary committee.
David, may I?
Go ahead, David. I know that, Gene, I know you have a
Okay,
question too. Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Gene, for letting me speak, and I'll defer to you when I'm done. Thank you. The temporary committee is a subcommittee. Subcommittees report to the full committee.
Right.
We are not the permanent fire station committee. We're the full fire department building committee. This
Okay.
is the subcommittee of that full committee. The subcommittee has a task to bring, in my opinion, to bring before the full committee its information so that the full committee can then do appropriate decision-making about how to proceed. If the subcommittee of the temporary fire station is telling us that in their realm, they will do the ranking and they will then my questions are like this. I personally think that no decision gets made that's a decision until it comes before the full committee, number one. Number two, if there's a ranking committee, what then is the role of the subcommittee, temporary fire station subcommittee after the ranking takes place? What role will they play before it gets brought to the final committee? Thank you.
Before we answer that, David, I'm going to ask Jean for her question.
Sure. Thank you.
When I served on the senior center building committee, the whole committee met and we opened the envelope with all of the proposals in it. And we were each given a sheet of the ranking criteria, and each of us filled it out at that time as the proposals were read. And that's been my confusion with this building committee all along, is we have not all participated in the decisions that were made. I mean, if we get 100 RFPs, I can see that that's impossible. But to me, it's so important to have full participation in the ranking of these companies that I don't see why 3 or 4 people get to do it. That's all I have.
Okay, so before we discuss,
Can I say something
yes,
before you move on, David?
go ahead.
If I could, would it be permissible that the people that have been chosen to identify the ranking group, if you will, the smaller group, can we task them with giving us 3 proposals to push forward to the rest of the group, and then the rest of the group make the decision from there? Would that be more appropriate?
I second that.
Because what I'm fearful of, as what happened when we did the project manager and as we did with other things, if we get 10 proposals, that's really hard for the whole committee to get through. And I think it's more appropriate that a small group forwards to, 3 names, and then you can choose, everybody can be involved with choosing the 3 names from there. But if you go beyond that, I mean, that could have really complicated things in the first phase. I understand that that's probably what's been done on other ones, but that's my suggestion: is you trust the group that's going to throw forward the 3 names to you, and then the committee chooses from those 3 names.
That would be what I was assuming would happen, because it's likely going to fall out that way. There's I mean, I had a question ahead of this discussion, which was, what is the real, you folks that know about temporary apparatus bays and living quarters, what is the likelihood that we would get more than 4 or 5, if that, proposals? But I don't know that from a professional standpoint. You're the ones that would have to answer that question. I never would have expected 400 boxes for that piece of the library that we just did. That's an exaggeration, but there were many, many boxes for the library contractors and so forth, but that was a different story.
Neil, can you give input on that? What your feeling might be as far as how many responders you think we might receive?
Dave, unfortunately, the way that the city distributes their plans and specifications for bid, I can't say with any degree of certainty how many proposals are out there.
Okay.
If we got more than 5 for either the modular offices or the modular apparatus bays, I think I would be surprised.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but before we continue, there's something that I don't understand, and I really want to understand it before we go on with the conversations about ranking. Can you explain the process of opening up the envelopes to me again? I'm a little confused and not certain on what the process is. Can you just go through that again, Neil?
Sure. So each proposal that we receive will come in 2 envelopes.
Okay.
There'll be an envelope that's marked technical proposal.
Okay.
And that will be an explanation of the system structures, features of the trailers and or bays that the particular vendor is proposing to use.
Okay.
And that will be the package that is evaluated according to the criteria that's outlined in the RFQ.
Okay, so that's basically all the equipment that they're posing, all the structure,
Yes.
all the equipment. It doesn't have
That's
any
correct.
price. It has no pricing.
That's correct.
And this is what the committee would review.
There is a second envelope, Dave, that contains the price proposal.
Okay.
And once the evaluations are completed, the price proposal envelope can then be opened, and you have the numerical side of the analysis to go forward with for the proposals received.
So you review the technical envelopes. So you review the technical envelopes. At some point, you choose one of those, and then you open up the price point for that particular one or the rank. How does that work? You rank them, and then you open the envelopes.
Yes.
Okay, so if we received 4 and we ranked them 1 through 4, then we would open up the pricing envelope and see what the prices were for 1 through 4.
I have to be honest, Dave. I've got to go back and review whether you're entitled to open all of the envelopes at once, or whether you have to open one and only one, and then negotiate with them. And if you can't reach terms, you can proceed to the second rank proposal.
Well, I mean, what I'm confused about is if we're ranking if we're going to rank the technical, we need to first rank the technical envelopes, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so whether it's a subcommittee or it's the whole committee or whoever it is on our building committee, we have to rank the envelopes first, right?
Correct.
We don't have to open up the pricing envelopes until after we rank them, correct?
The team that evaluates the proposals on their technical merits is not supposed to see the pricing.
Okay.
This is not a hard bid, Dave.
Okay. So we're gonna rank say it's four companies. We're gonna rank all 4. Are we gonna bring that in front of the full building committee for recommendation? And then the envelopes get opened for the pricing?
right now. Okay.
Is that how it works?
I think we're overthinking this, guys.
I'm just trying to understand it, Neil.
Right.
I'm trying to understand what the steps are. We rank them, and then we bring the 4 rankings to the full building committee. Is that correct? As David is asking?
Well, if it were that few, I think that would be the case. Bob has
Carol.
put forth a good recommendation, so.
Okay, Carol, go ahead. Carol.
I not to further complicate it, but I've been involved with several of these. And when you're ranking these technical proposals, there's criteria that come along with it that Laura should have done that matches up with the RFQ. So it'll include things like how many years they've been doing this type of work, who's involved on your project team.
Yeah.
So if the full committee is not reviewing each of the proposals, there's absolutely no way to rank each of the proposers. So I don't really see how bringing, even if they're ranked 1 through 4, anyone who hasn't reviewed those proposals would not be able to make an informed decision. So I think it really relies on the members that are doing the review to and maybe more support their argument of like, we selected this one as our top choice because they had the most experience, whatever it may be with the argument, because otherwise we really wouldn't have any way to make a determination, since I'm doubtful anyone knows who these contractors are.
The only reason why at the last meeting or the one before that, I don't remember, that I asked about should there be a committee put together to rank them is there was a lot of questions way back when this building committee, but the other building committee on who ranked these locations, and there was some questions that the public had about who was really ranking them. So I just want to make sure it doesn't matter to me if there's 3 people on it or the full committee on it. I want to do what's fair, and but I want to make sure that everybody understands how it's being ranked and who is ranking it, in case the public has a question on how the process went with respect to ranking. David?
No, I totally agree, and it's a little tough. So
go ahead, David.
Carol.
Are you all set, Carol? Are you good?
So
I guess
Neil,
so,
I
yeah.
understand. Neil, maybe I'm dead.
Hold on, Dave. It doesn't seem like Carol's done.
But
I'm getting a little bit of delay, so I'm not too sure who's continuing to speak. There's some delay here.
No, I
sure,
actually was all set.
I'd actually.
It's okay. She seems to be all set, David.
So Neil, there's the opening of the envelopes, which I guess has to have some formality to it. People have to see it happen.
Yes.
Okay. Then there's once the envelopes are open, we need to review and rank them. And then the third thing is there has to be a vote to actually say yes to the suggested ranking, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the way I envisioned it, I didn't understand the opening the envelope people, but I think that's great. Let's do that correctly. There should be a group that gets picked to do that. I guess I had envisioned that the temporary fire station committee would be maybe the place to discuss the ranking of the proposals, inviting the full committee to that discussion. And then as a result of that, and people would come as they saw fit. And then at the full meeting, at the next full meeting, there would be a vote to decide. There has to be, in my opinion, I don't know how, and maybe my suggestion isn't the way to do it. There has to be a way for the full committee to have a chance to participate in seeing who bid and what the details of the bid are. So if you do it at a subcommittee level, that means that people who aren't interested don't have to show up. So they'll accept the recommendation at the full meeting and they'll vote accordingly. But if people do want to show up, I think they should be given a chance. Now, I understand what the chief is saying, that if there's 10, maybe that's unwieldy, but maybe we should cross that bridge when we come to it. But I based on what happened in the first half of the year, I think that the committee has a right to see the bids and participate on some level in evaluating those bids. And again, it doesn't have to be at the final meeting where that would be overwhelming, but it could be at a working subcommittee meeting, which is usually where that takes place. Thank you.
Question? David?
Go ahead. Yes.
So if that's the case, two questions with this, and then hopefully we can move on because I think we're spending a lot of time on this. Is it the full subcommittee that's going to do it, or is it going to be the full committee, including non-voting members that are going to participate? Because our subcommittee is made up of both voting members and non-voting members.
It should be
I
voting
think-
members.
Yeah, I think that the subcommittee meeting should widen to allow voting members to attend. And then at that meeting, the hard work will be done. By the way, I don't think this is actually a time-wasting conversation because
Didn't say it was.
it's really important to have, it's really important for the full committee to participate now in what's going on. And this is the first chance we've had to really organize that. And so I think it's a very good and healthy discussion, actually. So, you know, I don't have to be the arbiter of how we do it, but the full but if my suggestion is just to give it a way where the final meeting can be a place where we put it to rest, but there's a working meeting where people get to participate if they so choose. And, you know, that means that people don't have to do the nitty gritty if they don't want to. But I want the full committee I want the full committee to participate in this process, or be invited to participate anyway.
David?
Yes. You
The
have
process?
me,
No,
David M.
David M.
Go ahead.
The process does follow a legal process. So all of the applicants have to be ranked. So we need to decide, is that a smaller subset of the subcommittee that will do the ranking and say, here is our top 3 picks. I'm going to use the chief's words. Top 3 picks based on the ranking. That's one question. Or do we want the full voting committee of the subcommittee? In other words, the full voting the members of the full voting committee, members of the temporary subcommittee, all of them, as opposed to a subset of them, look them over and do the ranking and make the top 3 choice. So I think that's our first decision to make. Then the top 3 choices, as Chief said, would be presented to the whole permanent committee for a discussion about how they were ranked and a decision on which one to choose. What I don't fully understand under this scenario is when the pricing envelope gets opened. Because to me, that seems like it would have to happen at the full committee meeting then, based on the ranking.
That's why I asked Neil to explain it, because I didn't understand when the pricing envelopes had to be open. But to answer your first question, I would like the full temporary committee to be involved in the ranking.
That's fine. That eliminates that issue.
And
But remember, you have to do the work. It has to be done by the 25th.
Yeah. So everybody on the temporary committee needs to know that it has to be that your due diligence and homework has to be done for the meeting on the 25th.
Dave, understand that my intention is not to exclude anybody from having the information or reviewing it, but I think that that's different than what we voted on and agreed to at the last meeting.
It is.
Okay, it is different. I mean, we can make a motion to change that. You're right, Jennifer. It is different.
I'm just trying to point that out, that this, in my mind, this is different than what we discussed and agreed to a month ago in terms of vetting the proposals and making recommendations. So we just need to make sure that we dot the i's and cross the t's and make an appropriate motion and second and vote if we're going to change the process. And I think it's important to do that before the proposals are received, so that there's no air of impropriety that someone got to look at the proposals and then we change the methodology to favor one bidder over another.
I understand that.
And to the mayor's point, I can scan and email to all of you the procedures as outlined by the IG's office and the AG bid unit in terms of opening the proposals, ranking the proposals, when the price proposals can be opened, so that everyone is on the same page. My only question in terms of process, being open and honest with my committee and subcommittee, is I am just not sure how many of the price proposal envelopes that we are able to open at any point in time. If we're limited to only the top ranked proposal and then make the negotiation, or whether we can open all three or whatever once those rankings have been established. And it's different for every type of procurement in the state. So I just want to confirm what that is before answering the committee.
Who would answer those questions, Neil?
It would come from the IG's office.
Okay. Carol, you have a question or a statement?
Yeah, statement. I would just say I know it varies depending on but it's an RFQ, and I believe that what Neil said is true, that you can only open your top selections price and then go negotiate with them before you can move down to your second choice.
That's our request for quote, so that makes sense.
I think the question that I had, and I think the question that the mayor had, if I'm correct, is that when do we have to open up the price envelope? Can we rank these and then bring them to the full board and have a discussion and have the full board either say yes or no, and then you pick your one and then you open the envelope? It's not the same all at the same time, correct?
Correct.
That's right. But there's one thing, Carol, I do want to correct. We did not issue an RFQ. We issued a request for proposals.
Oh, okay.
And there is a difference. So again, I want to defer the question, table it, if you will. I will do some research this week and ask the questions, and I will be able to reply back to the committee or the selection committee or the secondary committee, whatever we want to call it, at a later date, and provide the sound guidance in terms of opening the pricing.
Okay, that would be very helpful before the 25th.
Sure.
Does anybody want to make
before the 21st, frankly?
21st, yes, before the 21st. Jennifer, do you have something? Your hand was raised.
I'm just trying to actually take minutes that somewhat reflect what's going on, but I feel like we've been sort of circling around to change.
So,
yeah.
So so there's a whole bunch of things we talked about. We tried to understand the process, and I think we understand it. And I think Neil is going to do some homework with respect to the pricing envelopes. So the question is, there's a couple questions. Well, the main question is that I have is, if somebody wants to make a motion to change the way that we decided we were going to rank, we picked a ranking committee. Does somebody want to make a motion to change that to the full temporary committee? And I believe that's the first question. And the second question, well, the second statement is that I think we're going to follow the path of we're going to, the temporary committee is going to do the ranking. The full committee can be at the meeting if they would like, and then we're going to propose it to the full committee for a vote. If that's my understanding on how the process is going to take place. David?
All right, so let's start again. Number one, I want the full committee to be the group that makes the final decision.
I think I just said that.
Okay, but I just want to decide why we should have this motion or not.
The motion,
What we agreed to in December is being expanded by this conversation. So, and there's a ranking group of 5 people that have been chosen to rank the proposals.
There was.
Okay. So those people rank the proposals. Let's say we keep it the way it is. They open it, they rank it. Now we're at a fork in the road. We can either have the rankings remain, okay, that's how we're going to do it. And maybe the temporary committee would have a discussion about it, make sure everybody's on the same page, because you're going to probably fill out a form and then they're all going to be collected and there'll be a discussion. But then either the temporary committee, if they rank X as number 1, either they're going to want to open the envelope then, or they'll wait and they'll take it to the full committee. Then the full committee will presumably or hopefully confirm what the subcommittee has recommended. And at that point, the monetary envelope is open. That would be the other option. And then then we start negotiating. What I want then, if that's the way it's going to work, is for the full committee to at least be given a summary of how the ranking and temporary committee came to their decision that this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5. And then the full committee could say, that was terrific. We'll vote your number 1. And then we open the envelope and we begin to negotiate. I just want to make sure that we have, if less people rank, I don't care. And if the subcommittee talks about the ranking and without the full committee, I don't care. But I want the final committee, I don't want the monetary envelope open so that we're stuck with that choice until the full committee decides with a summary by you or others in that committee telling us why you chose that one first. And that would work for me. And if anybody else wants to vary that, that's fine. But that's how I understood the process was going to be when ultimately the temporary would do the hard work and give an evaluation to the full group.
I think
Yes, and that, go ahead,
Correct.
Mayor.
I was just going to say, I think that's not far from, I know we've had a long discussion and I agree it was important to have it just so everybody understood where the questions were. And it seems like Neil has a very legitimate question himself. So about this particular process, if it's a request for a proposal, that might have changed. We may be able to open the prices for all of them.
And Mayor,
Mayor,
just to be clear,
Yeah.
I think that's the case.
Yeah.
I think you can open all of the price proposals and make your decision based on a combination of price and technical qualifications. But you're not supposed to know the price when you're evaluating them technically.
That's correct.
So I believe that the subcommittee would be able to review technically first, pricing second, and make a recommendation to the building committee based on both. And then the committee, however we decide to involve the main committee, we can certainly do that. But I believe that that's the process. I just want to make sure.
You're going to clarify that process for us, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's very important.
So David Singer, does that comport with what you said? It seems that you wanted the building committee to be able to make, the full building committee to be able to make the decision based on the technical ranking plus the price.
No, with a recommendation from the temporary committee as to why that list. Then if members
Okay.
want to watch the temporary committee meeting so they could get a blow by blow rather than get a summary, then they have the chance to watch it as well. So by the time we get to the vote at the full committee level, every member of the committee will have had a chance to either participate by direction or have an opportunity to listen and become educated. And at the end, they'll get a vote. So that vote will be based on their own participation. So that work, yes, that method, thank you very much for indulging me. That works great.
Okay.
Can I just
Jennifer?
two things? One, I want to remind us that when we formed this temporary subcommittee, almost all the voting members of the main committee are on this. And so I think it's important just to bear in mind that, and that was because we did need a separate space to work on this temporary subcommittee, but and we do need to be very careful about process to bring this back into the space and the meetings of the regular committee. So I really appreciate sort of being clear about how things are going to move back and forth. But as far as, being inclusive, I think there was a real intention behind having a smaller review team. And it was a group of people who could make the commitment to turn this around fast, to be thorough and fast, because one of our major mandates on this group is to keep things moving along, and not to be an extra barrier for our OPMs, but actually to sort of speed the plow. So that was really the intention there. In order to be able to commit to kind of that 4 or 5 day turnaround, it was really asking a small number of people to kind of make that sacrifice, frankly. So.
Well, it's going to be less than a 4 or 5 day turnaround. It's going to be a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday turnaround. So
right.
And just keep in mind that's bid number 1.
Right. Exactly.
Go through this all over again. Now, given that there's bid number 1 and we can begin a negotiation on that, then we turn around and we do this same process over again for bid number 2 and do a negotiation on that. So timeliness is absolutely of the essence. And I'd like to address that once we decide on if we're done with this conversation. I have a question for Neil after that relates to timeliness.
I think we're done with the conversation. I think we all understand it. I know Neil's going to do some homework with respect to opening up the envelopes and what the timeline is for that. But I think we all have an understanding on what we're doing and how we're going to present to the full building committee.
So I agree with that. Thank you. I do want to encourage you, Neil, to send everybody the IG's process for this so that everybody understands it. And we
I have it open in front of me, Mayor.
Yeah, and identify whether we missed any little tiny rules that they want to tell us about. Yep. My question to you, if this is the right place for the agenda, which I think it is.
You can ask. I don't know what your question is, so I can't answer that.
Yeah, it is, I need a guidance. I can accept that guidance strictly from Neil alone, which is probably the best way to do it. But on the one hand, and Dennis and company, but I think the full committee needs to understand. I need guidance on when do I ask for the extension. I'm afraid that I feel like we don't have until we get all of those bids opened and know who we're going to choose and have commitments from them on time. I feel like I can't ask for an extension, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've lost track of that because we know that we want to have these buildings built by the end of June, first part of July, if I remember the timing properly. But I have to go no later, I think, based on the email I got some time ago from Lauren Stara. We have to go for the extension February or March. And I don't have a confirmation yet on whether it's February or whether it's March. But those 2 months are coming right up.
That's another committee that knows the answer to that question.
No, they don't. It's up to me to go for the extension based on the fire station timing. I mean, yes, they can have some input, I guess, but really that's what it's all about. I will need their assistance in the best way to do it, and we'll probably have to go as a unified front. But I guess I know once upon a time, Neil, you told me as soon as possible. Whatever that means, and that's what I'm looking for. What does that
No,
mean? Do you think?
I think what I said, Mayor, was as late as possible.
Oh, okay, maybe it was as late as possible. But April 21st is right around the corner too, for that matter. So we just need to be able to know probably in February or March, at least alert them to what we're looking at and whatever the proper process for going for an extension is, which I will need guidance from the library on.
So we will have much better information, Mayor, when we negotiate with the parties for the offices and for the apparatus bays,
And it
which,
sounds
as you
like,
know,
yeah,
we put directly into the proposals that we expected the structures to be up and in place, ready for the city to do their work no later than the middle of April. The exact date escapes me, but I believe it was the middle of April. So that gives us 2.5 months to fit them out, bring everything over that we need from the operational fire station, and take that one offline. And that's still the time frame we're tracking to. I don't have any better information than that, and I probably won't until we start negotiating with a particular party, because that will be the first thing that we ask.
and you will know that sounded to me like, based on what we were talking about earlier in this meeting, somewhere mid-February.
Yeah, first, second week in February, we should have, you know,
Everything.
in order to make the award to both parties, they will be asked the question directly if they can meet the schedule. And that will be a huge piece of going forward who will be awarded the project.
Okay. I see that Ed Berlin would like to weigh in, David, if you're okay with that. I don't know if you saw it.
I did see that, and I'm okay with it. If you'd like to take the floor, Ed.
You're on
Are
mute.
you on mute? I think
Okay,
you're on
hi.
mute, sir.
Thanks, everybody, and Happy New Year also. We are, regardless of your progress, we are going to make our April 21st deadline. Dan Pallotta has assured me that we will be able to do that, and the deadline really has to do with when we get our construction documents and our bid documents out. And we are on track to be able to do that to meet our April 21st deadline. So if we do need to ask for an extension, it will be around whatever happens around July 1st. And we don't really have to address that quite yet. Mayor, I'm glad that you're thinking about and thinking ahead, but I think it's jumping the gun. We're really, really hopeful, given your progress, that an extension will not be necessary. So I just really wanted to clarify that. We will make our April 21st deadline, because it really has much, much more to do with our paperwork and not what you're doing.
Groundbreaking was what I was concerned about. And that is what I thought was part of that. I mean, obviously the bid documents and so forth, but there's a groundbreaking. And at some point, I'm certain that you can probably do work on that site, but at some point you need, and that's towards July, whenever the temporaries are ready, you need to be able to move the firemen out of one place and into the other. So I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to wait, frankly, too long to ask for an extension. If it doesn't have to be February or March, we can assess it. We can clearly assess it after we have the negotiation, as Neil said. And then we'll have a better idea of whether it's, sometime later in March or April or whenever. It's obviously, it's akin to when the MLBC. I don't want to find out in the middle of a week, some week, that we cannot, that now the library is concerned about whether we need to have an extension or not. I want to know ahead of time whether we need to have an extension based on both building schedules.
Well, our hope is that we can start demolishing the fire station on or about July 1st.
Yeah.
If we're able to do that, then we will be meeting all of our deadlines.
Excellent. And we will know sometime then you're right. It is a little bit of a jump of the gun, and that's all I am concerned about. That's why I was asking the question. Believe me, I'd rather wait until March or April or even May before I ask for an extension, if I have to at all.
Well, my job is to work as hard as I can so that you will not have to ask for that extension. And I trust everybody in this group is also. And I think we're all making a lot of progress. And I'm really optimistic that we're not going to need to go back to the MBLC.
Good.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, folks, I'm going to move on. I do want to just bring up the issue that I had talked about, just for the record. On December 7th, we did pick the ranking committee, which involved Neil Joyce, Chica Ross, Mayor, Rita Gardner, Chief, myself, Gene Wall, and Peter MacGyver. That's what we voted on, and those are the folks that were picked for the ranking committee. Does anybody have any discussion around that? I know I had brought it up and asked if anybody wanted to have a motion to change that, but I'm comfortable with the ranking committee, seeing that we're bringing it back to the full committee so everybody can participate and discuss it. So I just wanted to throw that out there to see if anybody wanted to discuss changing the ranking committee at this point.
Dave, I think Gene has a comment.
I thought we decided that we were going to let the whole subcommittee be the ranking committee.
No, we did not, Gene. We voted
Okay.
on a ranking committee
I know, but
at the last meeting, and that's officially what it's set at right now. So I'm asking if there's anybody that wants to talk about adding or deleting people from the ranking committee. The way it's set right now is the ranking committee is going to rank. We're going to bring it to the full committee for discussion and a vote, so everybody can participate from the full committee. We can, if you want to discuss it, that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yep.
Are you sure? I just wanted to make it clear that that's what the record states on who's on the ranking committee.
So it would be voting members of the temporary subcommittee anyway, one of whom is many miles away, I think. Remind me, Butch, are you a voting member of the temporary subcommittee as well? You are not. Okay.
No.
So really, maybe it's only, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it's only Herb Forgy that doesn't get to play in this game. Am I correct about that? Is that the temporary building committee?
Gene and Herb.
But isn't Gene on the ranking committee?
Sorry, Jen.
Jen.
On the Jen and
oh,
Herb
that's right. Sorry, Jen.
Yeah,
Jen
Herb.
and Herb.
Yes.
It's time for you guys to decide whether you want to be ranking people or not. Then I think that's what David's asking.
That's what I'm asking. Yes. Do you want to participate in ranking, being part of the ranking committee?
I will go either way. If people feel strongly that the whole subcommittee look at all these bids, I will go. I will not do my job that weekend, and I'll do this instead. So, really, whatever people feel represents something that will sit well with the public. Given what we're talking about, given that we were talking about such standardized products, like if this was, you know what I'm saying? Like we're talking about modular things, and I feel very comfortable leaving it in the hands of the ranking committee. But I will throw myself on the grenade if that doesn't feel sufficient. So.
All right.
I
Thank you,
see
Jen. Herb,
Herb.
do you want to speak?
Enough room on that grenade, I'll jump as well. But I trust you guys.
Mr. Singer? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, lucky I was on mute. Thank you. The ranking committee is fine with me. I just want an explanation when it comes to the full committee.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like we're going to leave the ranking committee the way it is to do their job. And then we're going to have we're planning on picking the information up. The bid, the RFP should be in on the 21st. We can pick the packages up on that Friday, the 22nd, and the meeting on January 25th will be the meeting that we discuss the information. And instead of a regular meeting, we'll still keep the same meeting time, but we will use that time to discuss the information.
And everybody's invited.
And everybody's invited, yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So are there any new items that need to be discussed? All right, thank you. I know it was a long meeting, folks, but I appreciate everybody and Neil and for explaining the process. Can we have a motion to end the meeting? Anybody? Chief, do you have a question? Chief, you're on mute. Everybody's on mute tonight.
Are we opening it up to other business, or did I miss that?
I said, does anybody have new items? Do you have new items, sir?
I did not hear that, so I
That's okay,
apologize.
no worries.
I do have a question for the subcommittee. We did have a small working group of retired firefighters that working on places for our artifacts to go. I am really getting apprehensive about the volume of stuff in this firehouse that's going to have to be moved. And I'm not seeing a lot of progress with that outside of what the guys working on the artifacts are going to talk about. So, like, if there's stuff that we could start preemptively moving into Connex trailers or stuff like this, it's something that I just don't want to have come June 1st and we're doing it all in one shot. I cannot understate the volume of stuff I have in this building.
Can any of it be thrown away?
I cannot understate enough the volume of equipment in this building.
Okay.
Come on, guys.
And so, like I was in the basement today with Peter MacGyver and Alex Cooley, just looking around and really starting to get a little apprehensive about the volume of work that's going to need to be done in this. So I'm just throwing it out. I'm not looking for any discussion or solutions right at this point, but it's something that I thought this committee was going to really gear down on, not just purchasing of the equipment. So I'm just throwing that out as the time is getting less and less, and the expectation is we are going to be out at a certain time. I really need this committee to really start buckling down on how we're going to get there. That's all. That's my two thoughts.
I think we can do that at another meeting, don't you, David? Not the 25th, but another one.
Yeah, I think we can discuss that, and I'll put it on the agenda, Chief, to discuss it, and we can talk about some proactive ways to start moving things. Or, but I will get it on not the 25th meeting, but I will put it on the February 8th meeting.
I've got, just for example, I've got rooms full of paperwork
That's what we're talking about throwing away.
Yeah, well, exactly. There are certain mandates of paperwork, like our daily logs, our incident reports and stuff we have to keep for life.
Oh, okay. I thought we were doing this as a historical artifact thing only. In other words, you need to make those decisions. And
Right. So again, though, I'm looking for some, some of it is going to be budgetary with a temporary, like there's a lot to
You're
it
right.
that this committee needs to, in my opinion, put under their guidance a little bit.
Okay.
Chief,
So Chief, I'm going to put it on the agenda for the February 8th meeting so we could have a good discussion with respect to that, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chief, I think just from a practical standpoint, I think it's important for all of us who are not as intimately familiar with the contents and what needs to be stored, that there's some kind of inventory presented.
I'm trying.
I understand. I know you got a lot on your plate, but that would go a long way and identify any special requirements for storage, temperature controlled or otherwise.
I'm still trying to get into every nook and cranny of this department. So, yeah, it's just it's daunting, and I just wanted to throw it out there that we don't lose sight of that. That's all.
Okay.
But yeah, I think if we can just start, if you can help us understand in terms of destinations, I really think that there's the range of there's that shed that all the old school desks live in. We could just, set on fire and make some space. And then there's, is there money? There's public money in some states. I don't know if it's for digitization, and maybe, we might get lucky and identify an opportunity to just get rid of some things out of your life permanently. So if we can understand the categories and try to find some solutions, that would be great. Because it would be great if you don't end up moving those things into your new home, right? That's the whole goal.
Well, they're not going to fit in
That's for the fire chief
won't
to
fit in
set
the
things on
temporary fire
fire.
station. So
Yeah, don't you have a training building you need to burn somewhere?
Yeah. No, we do a reminder. We do have that small group of, it's mostly retired firefighters that are working on the artifacts, but there are simple things like town areas for the stuff to go, I guess, is what I'm looking for. If one thing that's been shot out is they've got 2 rooms at the present library that are unused downstairs. Imagine how easy it would be to transfer some of the stuff right across the driveway to one of those rooms. That's the kind of stuff.
So very temporarily, because we hope to sell that building. So.
Yep.
well, I think we can start identifying those items and, like Jen said, categorizing them, and we can come up with ways to thrown out and be stored. So we'll definitely get it on the agenda, Chief.
Okay, David, I had a question.
Yes.
Katrina,
If Peter wants to go first, go, Peter.
Well, maybe Katrina or Adam or even Dennis or maybe even Neil. In regards to the chief's comments regarding storage, one of the things that him and I looked at today is I have a huge amount of hazardous material equipment like suits and whatnot that need to be moved. What has been accounted for in the temporary space for Connex trailers or anything like that we could bulk store on site, stuff that doesn't necessarily have to be air conditioned, it just needs to be kept dry, and I don't need it to be stored in a building per se, but probably on site.
Neil,
before we address that, I've got to ask the chief, are you putting a temporary, let's call it restroom, bathroom type trailer that's going to take some space up, or not at this point,
I don't think that decision has been made based off of location, cost, and everything else that goes with it. I think we estimated it, but That's still, I think, something that we should discuss
Okay.
further.
I'm not sure we have much room there, Peter, if any.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is, on the drawings, you did have one Connex trailer on site, right?
There was, yes.
One of
I believe so.
the original drawings that I saw had one.
Potentially one of the very early drawings, but because of the requirements of these structures, I believe that sense has been removed. Any Connex trailers would come at the cost of the parking they would take up currently.
Okay. Well, let's reserve these conversations for February 8th, if we could. We can really get into it, Chief. If you guys could start working on giving us some ideas of the amounts of equipment and what they are, I think we could put a lot of time into it on February 8th, and we could get the ball rolling. If that's okay. Did somebody else have a question?
I had a question, and this is more for the mayor, and I apologize if I missed it early on in the session because I joined a minute or two late. Has there been an update on the acquisition? What's the status of the permanent site? It has some impact on some of the things that we're planning for the temporary site, but I'd just like to know if there's an update on that.
I don't really have anything to tell you. We are still in negotiations. I had hoped by now that we would have a signed purchase and sale agreement, but I was told today that we have another hurdle to hit. We'll have a executive session on Thursday at the larger meeting to discuss.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a hurdle that's going to take a lot of time, but it isn't, I'm not ready to give you a full update yet.
Understood.
Thank you, Mayor. Right, does anybody else have any other open items? I'm looking in the chat. I don't, Carol?
I just have a quick question. I don't know, Neil, if you know if they're going to be submitting electronic versions of the proposals for the trailers.
Carol, I don't recall, but if worse comes to worse, I can take one copy back to my office and scan them electronically and get them back to the city if needed.
Okay, because I was thinking there might be enough time that Laura could probably issue an addendum and request that an electronic copy come with the hard copies just to make it easier.
I can send Laura an email and ask her if that was included, and if it wasn't, if she can send it out with the addendum.
I just think that'll make things a lot easier on the city's end. Thanks.
Yep.
Anyone else? Looking in the chat, it doesn't look like anybody's asking any more questions. Can I have a motion to end the meeting again?
So moved.
In a second. Anyone?
Don't you want to go home?
Second.
Thank you. Maybe you can say aye and good night.
Aye, good night.
Night, folks. Thank you for your time.